Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast, where I clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity and practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, now so welcome back to Reframe Mindset Podcast. My name is Consumer Brooks, and I know this episode is basically going to talk about my varying sleep schedule throughout my time, various phases of my life. So and it would be the topic would be more focused on university, but I will mention other places until now. So basically let's get into it. So I guess the most accurate place to start from was basically from around high school. From high school days, because I think prior to then I usually just have normal sleep schedule. So basically what happened is basically by 8 o'clock or maybe 7 o'clock I would be in bed, because either my family would send me go to my room or what. So basically we would just, because back then school was basically majority of the entertainment, and when I'm home it would be TV, and we only had the national station. So basically what I would have basically like cartoons from 2 to 4 p.m. and then school finishes at 2:30. So basically it's 3 to 4 p.m. I will get to watch cartoons. So basically after that it will be like national stuff, national things and news, which was not really interesting to me. So basically, and then I would reach home sort of late, so well, not really late, but depending on when my auntie, because it was usually my auntie that drives me home until, yeah. So basically, so essentially the whole primary school experience is basically, I go to bed around either 7 or 8, because school was basically the majority of the excitement. the Even though home, yeah. So that was it basically for the primary school part. In high school now, basically. So what happened was my sleep. So in high school now, I had to travel a further distance. So, and this usually takes like the distance from my home to school was basically like 40 minutes drive. But also for that 40 minutes, I have to walk from home to like the town square, and then it taxis can either be can come can the time that taxis come depends on how early I reach a school. So sometimes if I miss a certain taxi, a bus I should say, if I miss a certain bus, I would reach school late because another bus may not come until, because school starts 8 o'clock. And then basically at 8 o'clock now, school school starts 8 o'clock. Then if I don't get a bus by 7 a.m., I'm reaching to school after 8, and I never, really ever reach a school late. So basically what happened was basically I had to wake up from around 5:30 to get a bus at 6 a.m. And it was a bus that usually comes at 6 a.m. around at the lane that I usually live. So basically but what happened was basically I could not wake up 5:30 a.m. on my own. I could not. It's recently that I've become more of a morning person. wake up all early, and that's due to, I will mention later, but you know, throughout the school days, early morning waking up was never my thing. So like the whole of high school, my mother was basically waking me up for school. My mother wake me up and make tea for me to school, because if it wasn't for her, I don't think you would ever see me at school. I would never make it to school. Because if it was up to me, even if I have alarm, still would wake up for the 5:30. So basically, what happened was in high school now, where I get more friends, different friends and stuff like that. And then what happened was I got my computer and internet, and we tried to play a certain game, various games, Facebook games and other kind of games. So basically what happened was I usually stay up much later then. So I usually go to bed around maybe 10:30, sometimes maybe up to 12. But the new friends and internet access and having a computer kind of upgraded, kind of bring more things that I would like to do at home. So basically I had more reasons to stay up, and that affected how I wake up in the morning, where basically I couldn't wake up. And and plus usually at home I was alone, so basically I it was up to me when I go to bed. So I usually just go to bed when I'm tired, and due to that now I could wake up early in the 5:30. That was that was something. So basically that was my high school experience. Now university, that's where the that's basically where the topic kind of came up, which I want to talk about. So university now, I'm on my own, on the dorm, you know, and such like that. So what happened was, so my first year, so basically we have to apply for the courses that we're going to take, and we have the option of selecting the time. Depending on the available slots, you can select the time that you want to go to these lectures, So basically, me thinking that, okay, I can, I'm used to waking up early to school, or no, I have the high school mentality brought over to university. So waking up early, I think my thing was, okay, I would do that, So usually what happened was I just pick the first class that came up, and usually those were 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. classes or such like that. So some days I would have 8 a.m. classes. Some I would have classes only in the evening. Like for example, my first year, on a Tuesday, I would have labs from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So basically, I had morning classes. So I'm on my own now, and the thinking is, okay, if you recall high school, my mother had to wake me up basically for every class. But at university, at the dorm, the classes are walking distance, so I don't really have to wake up 6 a.m. but so I can wake up 7 a.m. So the plan was, so the opportunity was more to reach class earlier, was more available, even though the walking distance was kind of far. But still, I could not wake up early. Still could not wake up early. Well, for the first class, I wake up early. For the first lecture of the first week, I wake up early, got ready, and reached the class. But what happened was, when actually, over time during the rest of the week, waking up early got harder, and then in the mornings, shower was maybe used by somebody and such like that. So, you know. So the morning waking up was nothing. Was really bad. Was really bad. To the point that throughout the second semester. So in the first semester, the second half of the first semester of my first year, I decided that I was not going to no morning class except for the morning labs that I had to do, because labs were mandatory. You had to do the labs and you have to reach lectures. Lectures, you actually get the lectures on from the online platform that we usually have at the university. So I never really need to go to lectures. The only place that I needed to go was labs and tutorials. So basically, some days I don't get up, and the plan was basically I was going to study at home the whole day, and then I'll have all these, because I'm not going to the lectures. I have all this time in the day to study, and so that was the plan. That was the plan. But what happened was, basically I usually sleep for the whole day. I don't come out of bed until like way in 4 p.m. in the evening. That's so late. And basically when I wake, I basically watch shows, see TV series and all these things. That was basically how my first year went with in regards to sleeping. I could not wake up for barely could wake up for morning classes, and then when I decided that I was not going to go to morning class, actually go and study, you know, I I basically sleep out the whole day, and only in the night, basically in the evening, I will wake up, maybe buy food, or actually try to make dinner, and then watch some shows and barely study, or do labs for the next day, and then sleep, and same thing over, unless it was a lab day where I would wake up early and actually go to school. So that's one of the reasons why on my faculty I was never known that much on my faculty throughout all the 3 years, because I rarely ever go to class. Only when labs, only through, if you know me through labs, that's the greatest chance of you knowing me on the campus at UWI. If you never be, if you knew me through lectures, you'd rarely ever see me at UWI. You'd rarely ever see me at UWI. So that's how basically my biochemistry experience was. It's not impossible for my whole record to basically go non-existent, due to how rare it is for me to be a class. How rare it is, I think even lecturers, I think, barely know me. That's how rare it is that I went to class, So basically, that was it. The next thing now was final exams. So final exams comes around, and for the first year, so university exams are totally different than the high school exams. So there was this thing called a marathon. So the marathon was basically you're going to spend one whole night from around 8, I think around 8 a.m., 8 p.m. to in the morning, 5 a.m., basically practicing with some PhD students that actually gone through the first year and actually got A plus, and they teaching you basically what is coming on the type of questions are coming on the test, because the question format doesn't change. Only thing changes like the question, but the general essence is there. So if they teach you how to basically answer the how to answer the questions the way they want it, because that's the thing at the university. It's one thing to answer the question, but if you don't answer it the way you want it, you can lose a lot of marks, because it's not multiple choice. Most of the course are not multiple choice. They actually write it down answers are working out, So basically for that night now, I went there and stayed all night, and then there was coffee at around 12 a.m. So I bought coffee. That was the first time I have ever had coffee. And the funny thing is, something I realized was the coffee actually made me want to sleep more. So that was a weird thing to find out then. But that was a new thing, and basically that was one of the first time I actually spent a whole night, a week, learning, doing learning such and such like that, and that was kind of helpful to me pass my exam. So, but the next thing to that was called all nighters. So all nighters was basically a night before the exam or such like that, or no, if you're studying or anything, you go out with a group of people and you said, okay, we're going to study all night from the night in the morning. So first year now again, for my chemistry exam, my chemistry final exam, me and one of my friends decided we out for the night before the exam because because of the back-to-back exams that we had to basically study, take one night and learn all the course for chemistry that one night. So we decided, okay, we're going to do an all-nighter. Let me tell you, when the morning came, we actually did the all-nighter, we actually did the all-nighter. But when the morning came, and I actually got ready and going to the exam and did it, my eyes were burning because I never sleep. And to make it worse, I barely was remembering anything because I was just like skipping through the lecture pages and just seeing what I can remember. Because the thing about the all-nighter, the goal was not really to learn and understand it. The goal was basically to actually just see every lecture slides to say, okay, I've actually seen it, so maybe something will actually be remembered, so I can apply it back to the exam. So that was the plan. My eyes was burning that whole exam, and then after I went home and sleep, and I said that day I was never going to do an all-nighter again. You'll never catch me doing an exam, staying up all night for an exam again. And that was the thing, and that was one of the things that ended up coming now to second year. So second year now, I had a different roommate, and one of my roommates always, criticized me about how I always get my 8 hours of sleep. You never hit, no matter what. Even one of the time I had back-to-back exams. We basically had an exam. After this exam, I have another exam the next day, and I never really prepared for that one. Well, I kind of started, but what happened was basically the night. So from say the first exam finished at 4 p.m. From 4 to maybe 8 p.m. you'll hear me. I will study for the exam, and then at 8 p.m. you'll see my roommate saw me go to sleep, and he said, "Yo, you have exam tomorrow. You're not studying all night." And I say, "Yo," I tell the boss, "Yo, I'm going to, I need my 8 hours of sleep because I need to be fresh for the exam." And I always got criticized for that because no matter what, no matter how in the exam, if the exam in the morning, I always say get my 8 hours of rest so I can stay fresh for the exam. And that's matriculated into labs. So for labs, most time I usually procrastinate with labs and actually had to basically finish it like an hour before the labs are due. And why that usually happened was basically I start during the night. I start during the night, and then basically what happened was I go to sleep, and then because the lab, so for example, say the lab is usually at 1 p.m. So I would take sleep and wake up around 8 or 8 to 9 p.m. Yes. And then I will spend the rest of 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. No, 9 to 11. I know. Yeah, so 9 to 11 trying to finish the labs. Then basically 11 to 12 to actually go to like one of the my faculty to actually get the labs printed out and then to submit it at 1 p.m. Yeah, so you see how sleeping in second year and third year, sleeping became very vital to me. And then, if I remember before, I said, okay, I was never going to do an all-nighter. One of the exams in my third year that I failed, I broke that rule. It was because, as I said, if you remember, if you watched one of the earlier episode, if you heard, you listened about my third year fiasco, you would have learned that my third year was me balling out. Went to every part, basically almost every big party. All kind of things happened that year. So and then I got my PS4 and such that year. So I was playing games all night. So basically that exam, I procrastinated so much that basically the night before the exam, even me doing the all nighter was not enough to learn the whole course for the exam. And I actually went in and was like, damn, bro, I messed up big time for this exam. I messed up big time. And that's what happened. I actually failed the exam. So I passed the coursework, but I failed the exam by like 3 points or such like that. And that was a sad day. That was a sad day. So that's it basically for university and sleeping. So the next thing now would be the real world. So I finished university now, and I'm in the real world. So after I graduated, I never really had much pressure to really do anything for like basically the first for like September to maybe like the new year. Because I freshly graduated, I never really have the pressure. So usually I will do, as I said, play games, eat, sleep, and such like that. But over time, the freedom kind of start turning to guilt, in that I actually wanted to do more things in my life, because I really ever left my house and such like that. So certain things usually just bring me towards learning. So I usually just, that's why I got into podcasting, where oddly enough I started to listen to podcasts, and people talking about interesting stuff, and I usually listen, watch finance videos, all kind of videos that kind of get me interested into learning. And then what happened was basically I got myself back into a gold mindset. So one of the things what I wanted to do was basically kind of gain weight, get myself to around 175 pounds. And what I started to do was basically running, jogging around my neighborhood, which I had to stop because of dogs, And then I started exercising. I started to try to learn programming. I actually did a minor in programming, but I couldn't get a job in my field, so I actually went to my cousin and learned programming and such like that. And one of the next things that I was doing was watching things like how billionaires sleep and such like that. I usually say, okay, they usually get 8 to 7 hours rest. So that was one of the things that kind of changed in the real world for me. Where basically, majority of my friends were still in college, so they usually play games like I usually do during the night. But over time, I realized that okay, I started going to bed early, which was very different, uncharacteristic. I don't really remember the word, but it wasn't me, and that was basically the start of this journey that you have witnessed on the podcast. Where basically me figuring out what my optimal life would I wanted to be in the real world, and that resulted in one of the few times where I got insomnia, where basically for like 3 or more days I was afraid to sleep, because what happened was me changing my habits so quickly was I was just trying to get rid of the bad habits and trying to instill good habits. And if you switch those things so quickly, it really affects you, your emotions and everything. And that's what really happened was for like many days I was afraid to sleep because this thing in my head was that if I fall asleep I might die. I won't wake up back. And that was because the real world was so going through the whole school system. You wake up the next day. What you were doing was going to school to actually do some work. In the real world, when you wake up, where you go is what's up to you. And that was something I kind of realized where the goals that I would have to have depends only on me. There was no teacher or nothing there. And then, so finding out who I wanted to be was basically me at a various trial and error of different version of things that was documented through the podcast of me figuring out where I wanted to be. And the result of me trying and such like that was a lot of things. One of if I mention 2020 and such like that, majority of me was recovering from anemia and insomnia. And and that was due to me kinda trying to find out what I wanted to do. That kinda call it. It was a midlife crisis, but it was basically after school, after graduation crisis, where basically nothing was going my way, and I was trying to find out how I wanted to get back my life in control, and it was never getting it. It was never ever in control, and that affected my sleep so bad. But over time now, my sleep is getting better. Where and I get my 8 hours of sleep, but as I said, the real life pressures is really, even though I get my 8 hours and nice sleep, real life is actually is, as I said, it's a 24-hour sport. You can't as I wake up the next day, something new is coming up. So it's always a long episode, but basically a detail of the various different sleep schedule that I had throughout the different phases of my life. And what I can say from this is the different sleep schedule is due, in my looking back now, I think was due to poverty. Because my family was not rich or such like that. So things, growing up, bad habits, that's one of the things that I realized. If I mentioned from the quality versus quantity video, as your life improves, you start to get quality things. For example, like quality sleep. Like now, I'm kind of able to get more quality 8 hours of sleep due to work that I've put in that made me can basically say, okay, I can slow down for a bit. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and any day now your rent's due, next day, one day your rent's due, then next day your bills due, and such like that, your sleeping is not really going to be as good as someone who is more financially secure. And that was basically one of the things, during those phases of life was, our family was not financially secure. We're still not that financially secure, but over time we're getting better. And that was I think that's one of the things if you reach this far in the episode, you will realize that, the bottom is really hard, bro. The bottom Being at the bottom is really hard. Being at the top is not a bed of roses either. No, I can't say being at the top is not really easy either. But I think that's one of the things that I'm working towards. Where basically how I actually do my things now was basically to offset things that I need to do. Cause if, as I said, back to my quality versus quantity episode, if you do all the things that you need to do, all you have now left is quality times to do what you need to do quality things. And one of the quality things that you actually need is sleep to actually function better the next day. So that's one of the things I guess you on your journey will realize that that's one of the next goals that you should have on your journey to maybe financial freedom or whatever freedom is the ability to get quality rest after a hard day's work. Because if you're basically under pressure from the realities of the world, your sleep will affect you a lot, and then you plus stress, and you will age up a lot. You will age a lot. So that was one of the things that I actually learned on this journey. Quality rest. Quality rest is important, but it will not always be available depending on the different phases you have in life. But when you can get the quality rest, get the quality rest. Sadly, it's this far in the episode. Not many will listen that much, but it's one of those important things that you need. Yeah, and you actually will go through these various different sleep cycles, but if you have the discipline and the ability to manage your time well, or if you listen to this podcast now, you're in a better position than most to actually develop the ability to get quality sleep than many of us from the past and those of the future. That's so that's basically it for this episode. Yeah, look for the next episode, right? And get some good night's rest. Don't forget the good night's rest. Okay, look forward for the next episode. All right, later.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
Knowing your self worth, and I guess this is a more very important topic because in the working world and wherever you are, that how you think of yourself is how I guess it kind of contributes how people really deal with you and such like that. And I've been at the low point and at the high point and in the middle, where low point where basically where I'm kind of at still, kind of because throughout my life, doing the science degree, it's still not a respected what I'm doing. Biochemistry its first thing is not really understand. People don't really understand it. That's the first thing. And what they don't understand, they really put respect on it. So that's the